So now this is going to be what I call the dessert, if you will, of
Okay.
the interview picture association.
Sure.
So I'm going to hold up some pictures, and you just tell us what's going on in them.
Sure.
This first one I've pulled looks like the logo for Veterans Club. Can you just tell the audience how you came about it, and were you highly involved in the design?
Yeah, so I wasn't highly involved in the design. There was
Okay.
a guy that I went to church with who does that work. And I just said, at the time, all we were doing is I was leading a veterans group at church. And I said, I want to create a logo. I want it to specify Kentucky, but I want to put the flag in it some way that looks cool. That was my exact words, right? And he come back with that. And I liked how he did the flag because
Sure.
to the naked eye, people would say the flag's backwards. But what that means is, anytime you're assaulting forward, you're moving forward, that flag blows this way. And so
wow.
at Veterans Club, we're always moving forward. We're always fighting to get the quality of life that we deserve and that we want and desire. And as an organization and as a leader of that organization, I'm always moving forward, always, battling in the trenches for these folks that we serve. And so I thought that was perfect. So that's kind of how it come about.
I love it.
Yeah, we just added the arm, the military green in there.
Yeah.
For good measure, and yeah.
That's great. So this is the next one. I was here.
Yeah.
This was a ribbon cutting in earlier. It was March of 2020, I believe.
March 6th.
Yeah. You want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, so that was out at our Camp Restoration ceremonial launch that we had out there, and I could feel the emotion behind that. And that picture was, I remember, and Fallon, I know her, we do a lot of stuff together, but I remember that particular day, I was rattled, right? Because, I'm thinking of all the lives that's going to change in that land, right? And so we were just talking about what Camp Restoration was, how it was going to serve vets, and what it was going to look like, and the why behind it. And so I always love the why question, right?
Yeah.
That's my favorite. So.
And this is a rendering of what it would look like. Can you talk a little bit about what's going on in the rendering?
Yeah. So those are what we consider, for lack of a better term, the pods for the homes, and each one of them are designated for certain residents. The one on the right would be for ADA accessible homes. The one on the left would be for single families, and the one in the far in the middle, north, I should say, will be for single veterans. And we wanted to spice it up a little bit, so we threw some pergolas there, some fire pits,
Nice.
A playground for the kids. But we just wanted it to be next level. We wanted something where they can be proud of living there.
So Jeremy, I want to ask you, for an audience member that's watching this that either hasn't served in the military or isn't a veteran, or maybe they know of a veteran, or they are a veteran, so get all that out of the way.
Sure.
Kind of walk me through, or the audience, walk them through how a veteran would get in contact with you, and then what you could actually do for a veteran once they come into your system, so to speak.
Yeah, so they can reach out to us, our website,
Okay.
veteransclubinc.org.
Okay.
They can get a hold of us on all social media platforms and send a message that way. They can call us on the phone. You can Google, all that good stuff. And then what happens is we reach out to the veteran and kind of see what their needs are, and then we assess what it is that we can offer. And then if there's something that we can't offer, we have community partners that come together to make sure that veterans get taken care of. It's like a one-stop, right? Whether it's us or one of our friends, right? We'll take care of them. If what we don't do, which is very little now, we know who does and who does it well, and so we'll just refer them to those folks if needed, and then we'll do whatever we can for them while we have them too. So, and the way it is being a member of Veterans Club. It's what we hope is a lifelong event, because I think last year alone we had 89 events for veterans to participate in their families. 89, man.
Wow.
So that's that balance, that no boundaries. But it was so cool, and we want to continue to do that. We want them. We are doing life together is our motto, right? It's a formality of a nonprofit, but we're a big family. So we don't never want to let them go, right? And even when they come through our programs, but we want to make sure they have what they need, and we know who can do that.
I love that. So on the flip side of that, say you want to donate.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a veteran to donate, I wouldn't think. Anyone
not at
can
all.
donate.
Yeah.
And how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, same thing. They can donate via the website. They can send a check to our address. They can go to social media and donate on Facebook and Instagram. But no, definitely don't have to be a veteran. In fact, a lot of the folks who do donate are non-veterans that just support veteran causes.
That's great.
We have about 300,000 veterans in Kentucky, and if you
Really?
add the families, you're looking at about 500,000 And so chances are someone knows a veteran or is in relationship with a veteran. And so we have, people who want to support that way. But yeah, I mean, everything that we offer vets are free to them. In order to do that, we need to raise funds. And so if anybody feels that that's in their heart to do, get a hold of us.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back to another picture here. What's going on here? Looks like you guys are having a good time.
Yeah. So we were at the National Museum of Women in the Arts in Washington, D.C. We won, and it's really bizarre because we're such a young nonprofit, but we won a National Patriot Award last year for the work we do. Winners before us was like Chris Kyle Foundation, Gold Star Mothers of America, just really big organizations that's been around for a while. And I was just happy to be in the conversation, but when they called us out and said that we won for Best Veteran Service Organization, I thought that was pretty cool. And, that picture there is with the chairman of that organization who presents it, American Freedom Fund, and then Graham Allen, which a lot of people know. He's a guy who has several different talk shows regarding politics and stuff like that. So,
yeah, that's true.
Yeah,
he does. I like that. And what's going on in this picture? Another looks like a good time.
Yeah. So that's when we were presented. We come up to get the award, and my beautiful wife's with me in the red, and then some of our board members and our leadership team is with me up there to receive the award, and it was just a real sobering situation. Just I remember being in that picture going, this has to be wrong. We're too new. We're too young. But. Man, it was just so great.
Somebody's watching out, man.
Yeah, man.
Somebody's watching out. What was the name of that event? Do you remember?
It was called the Martinis, Manhattans, and Mistletoes.
I like it.
And they do it every December in D.C. And when Congress are in recess, they all come to that event. It's kind of like the Who's Who event in D.C. for Christmas, and that's when they do the award ceremony. And so I was just glad to be there in general, but to win, that was really cool. That was really special. I'll never forget that. That was a good validation of the work, right? It wasn't that we don't do it for that. I don't do it for that, but it's just going, man, this is working, so it was a really good night.
Now this looks like more of the personal part of the personal side of Jeremy. What's going on here?
Yeah, so I travel around the country 4 weeks a year, and I talk to veterans and first responders, men who are dealing with combat trauma and just life issues, right? And I teach classes on authentic manhood from a biblical perspective. And if we're lucky enough, God intervenes that week, and then guys want to give their life to Christ. And so I get the opportunity to go in the river and do it the old-fashioned way and baptize folks who are coming to Christ.
That's remarkable. So how many of those do you think you've done roughly?
I've probably done about six of those.
It's got to be
let's think about that. No, more than that. About 8. Yeah.
It's got to be just as emotional for you as it is them. Now, are there families there, and is it a big deal?
Yeah. So some of these folks are guys who are at their wits' end, right, with life, and just don't know where to turn. And they a lot of times they come because that's their last resort. Because oftentimes, and I was that guy, that coming to Jesus and even going that route was the last resort for me. I thought I could figure it out myself, right? We're men, we have our pride and our egos, right? I got this, I don't need anybody else. But when they recognized during that week that they had it all wrong, and then we were able to transfer hope by using our own testimonies, our own testimony of our imperfection and the failures that we've went through and what has brought us out of that. They wanted to be a part of that. And so they said, I want to live this way. And so that's what we pray for, right? So we get the opportunity to make it happen through him, right?
That's beautiful, man.
Yeah.
That's so beautiful. Yeah. On a lighter note, what's this picture here?
So that was at the Kentucky Veteran of the Year dinner. That year, that was last year, so I was a speaker. I was a keynote speaker for that. The year before, in 2018, I won Kentucky Veteran of the Year. So they asked me to come back and talk about it. Yeah, I didn't even know what it was. I got nominated for it, and then I started to research it, and sure enough, man, out of a ton of people, they chose me.
It's remarkable,
it was just
man.
really
it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's really interesting, man, that how God's taken my life from being down this dark rabbit hole called broken, right? And then when I finally started surrendering to Him, how He's just taken it and made something beautiful out of it, and has given me the skills to go out and lead in the way. But the key is I do it the way He wants me to, not the way Jeremy wants to.
Right.
That's where the difference is. So,
yeah, that's why you're on the program, Moxie, man. I mean, that's that courage thing that people. Two people can be. I've done enough of these. I got to say this.
Right.
of these Moxie Talks or interviews, two people would be dealt fairly the same cards.
Right.
Actually, I think I'm about writing a book about this. And they can respond totally different to the same set of, roughly the same set of circumstances. And there's some people that can use it to triumph over, and others just totally broken, crumbled.
Yeah,
you know, whatever.
they just cave, you know, and people ask me that run other organizations, like, how do you become so successful doing that so quick? And I'm like, because I recognize I'm not doing it. And they look at me like a deer in the headlights, you know.
Right.
I'm like, it's not me. I wish I, from a human standpoint, from a pride standpoint, I wish I could take credit. But I pray about every decision I make. I go and do the work that I feel like He'd want me to do based off what He says in Scripture, and then this is what happens. He turns it into something beautiful. And I said, if you would have asked me that several years ago, I would have said, no way. It's all about me. I can do this. I got this, right? But we got to recognize that we're really weak in that way, and when we try to do things on our own, we're going to surely fail. And I had to learn the hard way. So, yeah.
Well, speaking of beautiful, I love this photo here.
Yeah,
What's
that's
going
my
on
buddy.
here?
So this was at the National Veterans Wheelchair Games, and this gentleman in particular, he come up a couple of days after his home had burned down in Florida. He lives in Florida, and he was just really just devastated by all that, and then obviously the disabilities that he faces, and I just really latched onto this guy, man, because I seem to get led into the lives of people that have these traumatic things happen to them, and we just become really good friends, and he become a member, and I was able to give him his shirt, and he was just so proud of the shirt, you know.
Yeah.
He's like, man, I love this shirt. I'm so proud to be a part of this, and he wanted to get a picture, and so we took a picture there.
I love that photo, man.
Yeah.
That's great. This is one I call your General Patton.
Yeah.
You're in front of the flag, and
Yeah.
you're looking all suave there. What's going on here?
Yeah, that was at a gala in Lexington for another organization. I was a speaker, and that was the backdrop of the stage. And I'm like, man, who don't get a picture in front of a big flag, right?
Exactly.
So, yeah, so
I
we
love that.
took advantage of that situation.
Now, out of all the photos, this one's my personal favorite. So, well, obviously it's a horse.
I can feel that right there, yeah.
Obviously it's a horse. Can you elaborate a little bit on why you do what you do with horses?
Man, that's Artie. That's our first horse in the program, right? When it was just an idea and just a hope, and he's been with us the whole way through, and I just recognize that although horses can't heal per se, he particularly was instrumental in my ability to heal and my ability to get the courage and the drive to want to do this for more veterans. He was able to inspire me to say, if this horse can make me feel this way and can distract me from all the stuff and help me, go towards the healing place, right? Then what can it do for other vets? And because of the relationship I have with that horse, it inspired me to do more. And so when that was during a video that they did for us, and I said, I want this shot with my horse, because that's how we greet each other. That's our hug, right? We just lean into each other because they're special animals, and they allow us to really, they're majestic for one, and they're so intuitive, and they force you to be authentic. And so that's what's so great about our program with Equine, is that it forces veterans to be authentic out there, and horses are just great herd animals, and it's just cool to be when they want to be a part of what you're doing, and they let you know whether you're on the right track or whether you're not, because if you're not right, they want to get away from you.
Okay.
If you are right, they want to come up and do that.
Okay.
And that's just the trust between me and this horse. No, nothing verbal, right? Just an understanding that's supernatural in nature, right? That we know we care about each other. So that's why I love that picture so much too.
So you give me an example. A veteran comes in, male or female, what have you. How does the horse come into the interaction with the veteran?
Yeah, so we first groom horses, right? Because if I'm asking tough questions, usually someone I don't know, it's easier for them to answer when there's some sort of distraction there, right? So if I'm just looking at them, there's a little bit of that intimidation or anxiety, and I'm there to try to ease that anxiety, but really get to the root of some pain. And so we brush the horse together, and I just tell them, envision all the dirt and the hair that's coming off that horse. Just envision that's just stuff that's been holding you hostage for so long. You're just brushing that off. You're getting rid of it. And so that gets them used to horses. And then when we go out to do the work, the real work with the horses, I'll tell them, hey, we have to establish a relationship. Like, these horses are prey animals. They want to make sure you're not going to eat them. And in order to do so, you can't have any anxiety or anger or any kind of emotional response that's going to make them want to get away from you, because they feel that, they sense that. That's how they survive, right?
Wow.
So what it does is it forces veterans to come to terms with that right on the spot, whereas if they're not there with us, they can go in the basement and hide, or they can isolate, which is a killer in our community. But right there, I'm saying, look, we can't go pick this horse up. It's not a poodle. So if we want this horse to work with us, we're going to have to make sure that we're giving off the right vibe, and that we can get to the bottom of what's causing the horse not to want to be here. And usually the veteran will say, well, man, I'm just anxious, or maybe it's the horse is big and they're afraid of horses. And I kid you not, while we talk through that, the horses will come, because we're being authentic, we're releasing all that.
Releasing that energy.
Yeah, so they're like, okay, I'm safe
bad
now.
mojo or what have you.
And they're like, man, look at that. And I'm like, see what I mean? Do this when you're not on the farm. Do this in your life. Do this with the people that love you and depend on you, and you will see your relationships flourish that way. Create that understanding. Talk about these things. Communicate. People want to help. They just don't know how, but you got to help them help you, right? You can't expect them to understand it if you don't give off the message, right? And so it's like an aha moment for them, There was one story I'll share real quick. There was a horse. We usually don't use off-the-track horses for therapy because it usually don't work out real well. But we had a horse down, so we used one that had retired several years ago. And one of the is a male veteran, and he was holding the horse, and he was holding the horse up by the lead, up by the neck, right? And so we're in a group, and we're just kind of talking, and I'm watching this horse just kind of pull him everywhere, and I can see him getting frustrated because he can't control the horse. And he had 8 feet on the lead, and so I said, hey, what do you think will happen if you gave that horse the length of the lead? What do you think will happen? He's like, I don't know, but man, this is frustrating, And I said, well, just let the horse, have the lead. And sure enough, the horse just wanted to graze. And so he gave the horse the rope, and he goes, I do this to people that I love. I grip them so tight by the neck, and they're always just trying to get away from me. He's like, man, I do that to my wife.
Wow.
And I do that to my kids. And I'm like, that's all the horse wanted to do. The horse wanted to do what it needed to do, but you were holding it so tight, so controlled. I said, what if you just release some of that? Let that go. Let the people that you love be who they are. Relinquish control. Because at the end of the day, we really don't have control over anything other than ourselves. And so then he would just email me, I haven't yelled at my son in 3 months, and my relationship's getting better because I'm giving her the freedom she needs to be who she is. I mean, just that moment that with that horse and that guy, and just watching that changed his dynamic of his relationship. And that's when people say, why horses? Well, that's why, because they create the conversation that needs to be created so that we can get to the bottom without being too invasive, right, and intimidating. So if I'm talking about the horse, I'm not talking about them directly, so they're more apt to give me the information that I need to help them. So that's the modality around it.
That's amazing, because the horses are so big, in comparison to humans.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think that they would have that intuition.
Yeah.
So that's remarkable.
Yeah, man.
How did you pick up on that? I don't want to get too long on this, but how did did you just kind of
just my experience with horses?
With Artie?
Just my experience with horses and recognizing how they behave. They're prey animals, and they do a lot of what we did in combat. So wild horses, they'll create a perimeter, right? And the horses inside the perimeter, they'll lay down. If you find a horse laying near you, that horse is super comfortable, because the only way they can get away is on their feet, right? Their speed. That's their only defense, essentially. So for a horse to lay down or roll for you, that just means that they're comfortable, they trust you. And so what'll happen is that perimeter will be, they'll be aware of what's going on, but the other horses in the middle will relax, they'll graze, they'll, lay down. And then if something happens, they all run a quarter of a mile, full speed, and then they'll stop and look back and decide whether or not they need to keep running or not. And that's a lot of what we did in the military. If we got hit by an IED or something, we'd pull security. Or anything that we did out in the field, we had a 360-degree perimeter, right, so that we could operate within that. And so when I tell that story, that they're no different that way than us, they're trying to survive like we tried to survive. That creates that relationship between the veteran and the horse immediately, because there's that understanding. He gets it, the horse gets it, and I get it. Man, I can get behind that. They are similar, right? And so, and horses can tell. They can tell by your facial expressions. They can tell. There was actually a special on TV about it, but they can tell your vibe, what you put out, whether or not they want to be around you. So a person laughing, they'll come around you. But if you're, anxious or or just in a bad mood, or just, you know, putting out some sort of, you know, tension, then they'll want to go away from you. So that's my own therapy, man. I go out there by myself if I'm feeling that way, and I have to get over it, and then I'll leave without all of that, right? So I want to go work with the horse by myself. I got to get rid of all the stuff, and then I do my thing, and we leave, and until next time, right? But they're always there. So, yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, man. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So
Yeah.
cool. So I love this picture as well. This is, I wonder what's going through this man's mind, but you were making a documentary, I think, or a docufilm.
Yeah, it was a docufilm, and it was the first time I'd ever went public with my story, personally. And, you know, that was just one of the shots that they wanted to take, but it was a very, very emotional day. But what's cool about it is the guy who did the videography and kind of produced it, he said, you know, I'm going to cut and do the things, you know, but he never did. We went 16 minutes, and I just went 16 minutes and never stopped talking. And he's like, you know, he was just like, you know, not to cut, right? Because he's like, that was so raw. But I'd been holding that for so long. And then finally, when I let a little bit go, it just all came out. And he's like, I don't want to edit any of that. So that's why it's a 16-minute film now, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, no, that was
And
just me.
I'm going to
kinda,
ask you this for the first time. I didn't ask you this before we went on the air, but if it's okay with you and you have the permission to do it, I'd like to put that at the end of our
absolutely
interview. So those that are watching this, stay till the end. We'll put it at the end because I think it's powerful and it needs to be with this part of your journey.
Yeah, and if it you know resonates with one veteran and somehow inspires them to either go get help or to change the dynamic of their life, then that's worth it. So share it however you see fit. And
this picture, I think I know who you're with here, but what are you receiving here?
Yeah, so that was a proclamation just a few months ago, right before COVID, with Metro Council, just for all the work that we do here in the city of Louisville and in the state, and just recognizing that, you know, just recognizing the work we do, and he wanted to do that personally, and that was, you know, like I said, we don't do it for awards, but those are sort of my report cards, right? It really tells me which way I'm going to go in the future, and so it just validation of the work we do, and so it was just it meant a lot to me because I'm a Louisville guy. This is my city, and I love it regardless of what's going on in the world, and I'm always going to love it. And so to see the leaders of the city acknowledge how much you give to the city, it just meant a lot to me. It was an emotional day, but it was super cool.
It's super cool. And behind every good man's a great family, as I say. Can you tell who's, looks like wintertime, who's in the photo here with you?
Yeah, so that was that was around Christmas. We were doing wreaths across America. That was at Zachary Taylor Cemetery. And it's my wife, Erin, my daughter, Lola, my daughter, Maddie, and myself, and then my son, poor guy, he's the only boy, Colin, on the end.
Yeah.
I just wanted to do that as a family. I thought that was a good lesson to learn there by putting wreaths on graves of those who are fallen. So
it's very good. Very good.